You know, I'm a resident of West Philadelphia. Who's from West Philly in the crowd? You know, West Philly people, we're very special people. We're a unique part of the city. We're cooler than the rest of the city. You know, when you cross the river, things very serious politically. You know, we know what's going on, the real deal. And it's also a really beautiful part of the city. We have trees everywhere, and we have Clark Park. And the next guy I'm going to introduce, Nic Esposito, is a huge part of this, of making this happen. And he's created gorgeous gardens in Woodland Cemetery and throughout West Philly. He's going to tell you about his work. Please welcome Nic Esposito.
Thank you guys very much for having me today. Like I said, my name is Nic Esposito. I'm from West Philadelphia. I'm an urban farming activist and a writer from out there. And I just want to say how excited I am to be here today on stage at the Perlman Theater giving a TED Talk. I know that might be redundant or obvious to say, but it's not the only reason I'm excited while I'm here. I'm excited because of the theme of today, right here, right now, because I think that theme best exemplifies the work I'm doing here in Philadelphia to try to bring people into this urban farming, natural living movement I'm a part of, and not only make it accessible, but make it a priority in your lives. And I hope after today I do that. So I kind of like to start by taking a different route than most of these environmental talks usually take. Sometimes people start off and they'll basically scare the crap out of you for about the first 3/4 of their talk, talking about how terrible we've destroyed this planet as human beings. In the last quarter, they'll give you a few solutions how we're going to solve everything. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start by saying right here, right now, I think human beings are at our most just, our most humane, and our most earth conscious we've ever been before on this planet. Thank you. Now that's a bold statement to make, and a lot of people disagree with me with that. People who don't make this movement accessible, people who make you feel you need to live like this in order to live sustainably on this planet. They make you feel like you need to be in the Stone Age to be sustainable. I think that's a fallacy. I think our technology is getting us to a better point. But I also have been helped out by science. Science has actually proven through human migration patterns, they've also almost directly correlated that with vast amounts of species extinction. Meaning that the further humans have traveled and been very successful, it's many times been at the expense of other species. Let's face it, human beings are a high-maintenance species. Our consciousness takes a lot to have to perform. But I think that we can use this consciousness to get to a better place. But before I do that, I like to keep this accessible, so I'm going to talk about my story for a second. This is what actually I would call primitive man. Oh, that's primitive man right there. That's me in high school. I look a lot different, huh? Now, aside from, make all the superficial jokes you want, the one thing I think I was very ignorant about was where my food came from. And it's ironic because my mom, she cooked organic, whole food vegetables my entire life. But I never appreciated it. And it's more ironic because I worked in a produce department in a supermarket. But it wasn't because I had some affinity for nutrition or natural living like I do now. It was because I just wanted to get off the cash register and go somewhere where I could screw around with my friends in the back. But I knew something was wrong with all this. I knew I needed to change. So I was lucky because I went to college. And I say lucky because I was one out of maybe 30 guys I grew up with who actually went to a 4-year university. And at the university, I did the cliched thing. I fell in with this group of liberal, radical progressives, and they taught me about all these amazing things like human rights and alternative ways to live. And that if you actually open a book, communism isn't as scary as, some speakers on the House floor will make it out to be when they're trying to kill health care bills. But as much as I agreed with these theories, I was still disillusioned. Disillusioned because I couldn't stand listening to kids shouting with the bravado of Fidel Castro about the need for agrarian land reform when they'd never put a seed in the ground. When if the electricity went off, they'd all be dead within 3 days. So I needed something else. I needed to toughen myself up. So I joined the National Civilian Community Corps. It's an AmeriCorps program, and I was deployed to the Southeast to help people after Hurricane Katrina, like this older woman in the picture. Now, aside from learning that volunteering your time to help someone else's life is probably the most soul-satisfying thing you can do, I learned this important fact, that the day after Katrina, it was hot, it was sunny, and it was wet. And these are the perfect conditions for growing food. And that's what these people could do. That's what they embraced, and I embraced it with them. You see, I was at a very important part in my life, which I think a lot of people get to. I was questioning, why am I here? What's my purpose in all this? I had influences. You had some people, they would turn to God or money or their jobs, and that would give them a sense of purpose. You had other people, they'd take a whole intellectual route, and they'd look up at the expansive stars and say, I'm insignificant in all this, and it would kind of, ease the burden of their humanity, so to speak. Well, I got the best of both of these worlds because I worked in a garden. And when you work in a garden, you see all of these processes that are working all around you, how nutrients interact with microbes in the soil that create food for the plants to eat, that also are nourished by the sun and the water, that create little bits of fruit that we humans eat, and then we put a seed back in the ground and it grows again. I learned that this is all a system, and I'm a part of this system. And I got that perspective, but I also learned that I'm a huge part of this system because I'm the tender of that garden. So I came back here to Philadelphia, and I came back with this sense of purpose and this sense of perspective, and I will say without hesitation, I came back to the most exciting, energetic, and expansive urban farming movement in the entire country going on right here. I say that because we have, clap, it's awesome. Yeah. We have one of the highest numbers of community gardens and urban farms out of any other city in the entire country. We have the biggest community garden in the entire country at Benjamin Rush State Park in the Northeast. We have the biggest city park at Fairmount Park. We have a mayor who just put forth a Greenworks plan that's not only going to revolutionize how food's distributed in the city, but also how it's grown. And then we have a place like the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. We don't just help rich people, They don't just help wealthy people make, beautiful gardens in Center City. They also help people like this woman revitalize their neighborhoods through urban greening and food security. Now, I could go on and on and on for my talk and all the way into the reception about all of the amazing projects that are going on in Philadelphia, but I can't. I don't have time. All I could do is implore you to go around your neighborhoods because you're going to find people doing this work, and I can guarantee that they are going to need your help. So what I can do, though, is I'm going to motivate you. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to uphold the 10 Commandments, and I'm going to dream on the stage for a second. I'm going to dream that we can get to that better place. We can use urban agriculture to do it. But what we need to create is a communally pre-planned, locally organized, natural resource-based economy to do it. That's a tall order, right? And that's like kind of idealism on this stage that many people have probably said before. Well, actually, I think there is already a template for how that's working. So to give you a little history background, in 1957, a lot of people may know that Cuba had a Marxist overthrow of the dictator, and they set up an economic system where it was based on communism, and they kicked the landowners out, and they controlled their means of production, means that were much relied on by the Soviet Union. So 30 years later, when the Soviet Union fell, Cuba fell with it because they were so reliant on that country. See, they artificially experienced what the rest of the world is going to experience through climate change. Because make no mistake about it, climate change is happening. It's not a question of when a climate war is going to be fought. Climate wars are being fought right now all over the world for access to potable drinking water, arable farmland, and that big resource we use, oil. Because it's not a question of when is peak oil going to hit. Peak oil has hit. The era of cheap, accessible oil is coming to an end. And with that, in this country, the era of cheap, accessible food. Because our food system is based on oil. Not only to truck the food from the monopolies in California, but also to keep that land that's been so destroyed through inefficient farming practices still in production. We need a change. Cuba learned that it wasn't enough to control their means of production. They needed to learn how to control their means of existence. They call that the second revolution, and I think we can have a second revolution right here in Philadelphia for our country. So the way we're doing that is, the way I'm doing that is what we've created is called the Walnut Hill Community Farm. This is a project that myself and my partner Erica Smith got together, and we started a group called Philly Rooted. And we basically just started off, only we wanted to do was just create small garden beds that we can grow food in because I was so used to it, and that's all I wanted to do. I will selfishly say that's how I came to this movement. But as it usually goes when you do this work, you get more than you bargain for when you do it. So the Enterprise Center, which incubates minority-owned business, came to us, and they asked us, can you do something with this plot of land? The neighbors, they want a community garden. So we thought, awesome, no problem. This is going to be a slam dunk. We were really surprised when we faced resistance from the neighbors. Resistance not because our idea wasn't good, but resistance because these people came from a long line of disenfranchised people who had developers come into their neighborhoods and make promises that they did not keep. Erica and I needed to do something different. I think this is a very important lesson how we started off. What we did was we created a community garden bed. So you see Erica in this picture. She's loading a raised bed full of soil that her and the man across from her helped build. The man across from her is who's going to be gardening in that bed. You see, it wasn't enough to just have these community people as passive observers to watch what we were doing. We needed to make guardians, stewards of our project with these people. And that's what they've become by taking the initiative to help us build this garden and not watch us do it. I think this is a lesson for anybody in society. You know, it's not enough to sit in your living room at night yelling at the cable news channel about food security or, energy wars that are being fought. It's much more proactive to plant your own garden. Think about how you can make your house more energy efficient by solar panels, recycling gray water, little projects that you can do to become the guardian and the steward of this economy that I'm talking about. The next thing that I'm really excited about that we're doing is our resources. This goes back to the natural resource-based economy that we're talking about. As you see, there's a pipe coming out of SEPTA's 46th Street station. That pipe now is connected to that 1,100-gallon cistern that we're using solar power water pump to pump water on our site for irrigation. This came because we needed water for the site, but I didn't want to do the traditional dig a metered water pit, strain our grid anymore. I wanted to do something more sustainable. And I remember the day we're standing on site, I'm telling the SEPTA business manager this, and he's just kind of staring at me and he's laughing. He's just like, this is crazy. Like, this is going to cost money, it's going to take time. And before I could even defend it, a man from the water department, a high official from them, turned to him and said, yeah, it's going to take you a little bit of money. It's going to take you some time. But it's the sustainable thing to do. And 10 years from now, you're going to see it was the right thing to do. I was blown away, not just because this man was defending my project, but because I saw what was happening here. People coming together from city government, local nonprofits, for-profits, community groups, to not just protect their own interests, but pragmatically think about the most sustainable system for this project. This is the communally pre-planned discourse that we need to make an economy like this work, that people working together for the best solutions possible. Another great solution that we have are how we're planting the site. What we're using is called permaculture design. Permaculture design is just as simple as using the ecological climate that you have to have the confines and boundaries that you're going to use and also the materials on hand. So to give you some context for it, give you an example. It's a hypothetical example. Right now, there could be a builder who's building the same exact house in Connecticut as he is in Arizona. This is insane to me. On our industrial model, it makes sense because you can ship stuff around with cheap oil. But permaculturally, it doesn't make sense. Two totally different climates, two totally different energy needs, two totally different resources on hand. We should be building within the confines of those systems, and that's what we're doing here. To this side, to your right, you'll see raspberry bushes. Raspberries grow wild all throughout Pennsylvania. So instead of planting some beautiful tropical plant that looks nice, we planted something that makes sense in this climate and also is going to increase food production. To the other side, you see broccoli. Broccoli is supposed to be growing right now. That's part of the seasonal food economy that I'm talking about. It's too much we rely on being able to ship food around that's out of season. By growing stuff that works right now, we're using permaculture design and increasing food security. And the last part, and this is the most important part to me, is the labor, especially labor with youth. You see the young man here, he is part of what we call our Youth Growers Cooperative. And these young people get together and they grow food and they sell it, and that's how they make a living wage. This project kind of fell in our laps basically because we got a great grant from the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society called the City Harvest Growers Alliance Grant. This grant has the recipients grow food and then sell it back into the communities to keep food prices low and keep food access up. The biggest things that really get me about it was the labor aspect of it, because it's been my own political view and personal view that I think labor in this country is broken. It's unsustainable. Einstein said that the more you automate society, the higher unemployment is going to go in the system that we have right now. And to give you some context on that, think about the car industry collapse. We've expanded the middle class so much, we get so many cars out to people, and once demand goes down, then what do we tell those people who set entire towns like Flint, Michigan up around car building? We say, oh, go out and find another job. Or go on unemployment. If you do, we're going to call you lazy for it. This is not fair. We need to fix that. And food is the same way. Treating farmers who provide the most important thing that we need to live, which is food, Like, that is not right. And farming will always have these problems because, one, you can never tell what the weather's going to do to your crop, and two, people can only eat so much food. You can't convince them to eat any more sometimes. So we need to figure out a better labor system, and that's what we're trying to do for these young people. Because I also had the experience of working in urban farming programs for high school students, and I saw the amazing transformations these young people would make. And it really was just mind-blowing. But the hardest thing I ever had to do was tell a young person, you're really great, I love what you've done with the site and everything, but we've ran out of grant money for you. Sorry, go find another job. I'm trying to extend that as far as we can go, and we're trying to create jobs. So what we've done is we've set these young people up to cooperatively make a business where they grow the food together and they sell it. They don't work for us. They work for each other. Erica and I are both part of the co-op. We help them along. And they're improving food access, and they're improving their lives, and they can get to a point like this, where they're at a stand, taking hold of their community, helping out with that economy that I'm talking about. Because to me, farming is the most important. You know, I'm a farmer at heart. I like to say that's what I'm doing right now. I'm farming. You know, it might not seem like that, but I'm not giving you seeds that you're actually going to take home and plant in the ground. What I'm trying to give you are seeds for your mind, seeds of innovation, seeds of sustainability, that you can take back to whatever you do. I don't care if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a mechanic, a construction worker, a teacher, whatever you do. Not only can you make your life and your industry more sustainable, but it should be your duty to do that. So please, take these seeds I've given you, that I've planted in your mind, and take them back to your communities. Sow them throughout, because I can guarantee that the people around you are going to be nourished by the splendor of the garden that you grow. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick, for that wonderful talk. I'm going to take a little poll of the audience. How many people, just raise hands, actually have a garden with vegetables and food? Wow. I don't. It's really impressive. How many people after this talk will think about growing such a garden? Very impressive. And how many people will never, ever grow a garden? All right, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. I want you to take note of these hands. And on the break, I want you to find these people. There is a limit to tolerance. I want to see horticultural activism on this break. Encourage those people, bring them to Nick. And I want to see gardens blooming out of every household in this room, all right? Is that too much to ask?